Senate Chamber, committee member.
Paul Dumars, Finance Committee.
George Elmore, member.
David Porter, Chair and member of the Construction Oversight and Review Committee.
Leanne Evans, School District Treasurer.
Not mine.
Good morning, Dave Dolan, Deputy Chief Facilities Management.
Heather Canoes, Chief Financial Officer.
Eddie Rhodes, member.
Sherry Brown, Budget Advisory Committee.
Radcliffe Brown, Technical Advisory Committee.
Blair Littlejohn from your office. Blair Littlejohn from the Office of General Counsel.
Do we want online people?
Yes. Can you run through the names of the people that are on? Or you can probably click the participants and the names will show up.
We're getting the online people to somehow tell us that they're on. Dave?
Okay, good morning, everybody. We have, I'm just going to go straight down the list from the Google Meet. We have David Atwell. No, slow at this. David Wilhelm. Jesse Saganor. John Gentides.
Present.
Okay. Karen Brill is with us. Mr. Ken Lassiter. Michelle Jacobs.
Here. Good morning.
Good morning.
Patricia Ordonez Feliciano. We have Ron Haran. Saber Avery. Salvatore Manuel.
Present.
We have Scott Singer.
Scott Singer here, thanks.
Shane Searchwell.
Yep.
And Suzanne Morion.
Okay, so we do have a quorum.
We do have a quorum. Okay. You want, for the record, can you tell us how many voting members we have that are either virtual or in person?
We have seven members here, and I believe we have 5 online. I can't see everyone on the screen. I counted them before the meeting started.
Okay.
We have more than we need. We certainly do have a quorum.
Okay. No, I just wanted for the record so that we would have that number down. And all the members here are voting members
Yes.
in the room?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Any public comments from our one public member? Not seeing any. We will continue on.
Yeah, I would like to take one moment and make sure we do introduce Heather Frederick, who is our new Chief Financial Officer for the school district. She attends the IROC meetings. Prior to this, she runs those meetings. She's never been to ISSOC before, so I just wanted to make sure all of you had met her.
Money lady.
Welcome aboard.
How you doing?
You're the one who provides all the cookies for us? No.
We do that jointly.
Yep.
Okay.
Ed and I work together on that to
We
make
share
sure
it.
that you're well-fed and that you're well-caffeinated as well.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Items for approval.
We are skipping over the minutes.
Okay,
There was a
minute-
problem with those this morning, and I withdrew them. I'll bring them back at the next meeting.
Okay. I guess we're on to you, Leanne, for the sales tax summary.
Okay, let's see if I can make sure I pull, here's the presentation. Okay, so I'm just going to jump right in. The sales tax receipts, it's really remarkable. We're up to 647 million out of 560. With the number I wanted to point out here, we're back to 115.4% of projection for this time frame. I've been showing where we were prior to the pandemic. We are back basically to where we were prior to the pandemic. The sales tax revenues are coming in at an astounding rate. I do want to go ahead and show, I'm going to flip for just a second to show this finance summary, because for the last quarter, we were at 125% of our projection for the last quarter. So that's the revenues that came in, that were earned in April, May, and June. That's just incredible. I had to do projections for the accounting accrual process, and I didn't project that high, and we actually had to go back and make it a late entry into FY21 to record it. But I would never have projected that. This number of 164%, every quarter you see one that's very high. That includes the quarterly distribution for small businesses that only have to file quarterly. If you looked at just the regular receipts, and I track that separately, it just doesn't show up on this report, but if you look at just the regular entries, we were at 125% of projection just for June, and that number was also 120% of the amount we received for June of 2019, prior to the pandemic. So the sales tax revenues are coming in at an astounding rate. One of the things that we always check, and if I don't bring it up, one of you will ask a question, is how do we look for the sunset provision? If we can, I've always said, if we were at 115% didn't worry me. If we're at 125% of projections, we would hit the target to sunset early. But I want to make sure I say we're 4 years out before that decision gets made. And we saw what happened in the last year. No one could have predicted that. So we are monitoring it every month. And typically, I'm calling Sherry Brown from the county, and we're comparing notes just to make sure we're all seeing the same thing. And the number, it's coming in at an astounding rate right now. And it's probably a combination. This is my not an economist view. There's three things happening. The automobile ship prices and sales are through the roof, higher than they've ever been by far. And I think part of that is people may have waited to buy a car, but it's also a chip shortage. It's hard to get cars. So the price, it's just supply and demand. So once the chip shortage, once that issue gets better, I think that's going to stabilize and drop back down. I mean, that's for what it's worth. I'm not good at predicting things, but that's one of the things. The other thing is some people did save up and they didn't go on vacations during the pandemic, and they're doing them now. And they're doing more expensive vacations because the hotel rooms cost more. Our tourism numbers are through the roof as well. And then the last thing is a lot of people got subsidies, and those subsidies were definitely needed for a lot of people. Other people didn't necessarily need them, and they saved them, and now they're spending them. So I'm looking at those three things that are driving those numbers. Construction costs are very high. We're seeing all those play out. So we'll continue to watch it. When I update the reports that you see and the reports, that sales tax finance summary, every month, that automatically updates my projections. So I'm doing that every month. So we'll continue to monitor that. Our total receipt, we've received 48% of the sales tax receipts so far. The expenditures this is through July 31st. Expenditures were $431 million. That's just the sales tax, with open purchase orders of $79 million. Interest earnings, they were much, much less for FY21 because the interest rates were so low, but we're still over $9 million so far. And the fees and interest associated with that revolving line of credit are only $300,000. So at the end of the sales tax, or at some point, we can decide to use that because we never drew on the line of credit, so there is no arbitrage restrictions. So I'm hesitant to do that just yet until we get a little further down the road and make sure that we don't have any other needs for other borrowings. If we were to do a sales tax revenue bond or something, the interest rates could be higher. So I just want to make sure we're set before we start using that. There's a list of people that would like to have access to that money. Chief one's sitting next to me.
Can I give you my savings account and you invest it for me?
I wish it would work that way. It doesn't really, but this is the summary that I show you every month, and this is coming from that big report that when we print it out, it's on 11 by 14. So this is just the summary, and it does show the original budget from the original referendum project list, the current project list, and you notice these numbers, we break out just the sales tax. The sales tax increase is really tied to this interest earnings. So otherwise, without that, every other area has stayed pretty constant. We have dipped into the sales tax reserve a little bit, but it's gone up as well. So the top part is sales tax. The cumulative change was $8 million, and that is the amount of the sales tax earnings. What has been funded to date is $652 million. Expenditures through June 30, this is reported as June 30 as opposed to the other one that was July. Open purchase orders committed to date, which is the expenditures plus the purchase orders. So the referendum committed to date, the entire program is 37.7%. When you compare that just to the funds that are currently available, and this was Mr. Porter's recommendation to add this to the report, that's 78%. So of all the amounts that have been budgeted to date, 78% of it is encumbered or spent. And then just down below that, this is the other projects that are funded with borrowing or other funding sources is primarily borrowing. So the increases in project budgets have come from that, not from the sales tax, obviously.
So the available funds that are committed shows that we are keeping up very nicely with money coming in versus money getting committed to go out.
Right.
Good.
Okay, so I'm going to go to the, see if I can get to the next slide. Okay, this is just a summary. We started looking at a way to show you the status of the projects. So we've started listing the projects, how many, there's been 3 that were canceled. That was the demo of Plamosa and Gove, and then the Gold Coast, because we eliminated that building and turned it into the new Adult Ed Center. We have 110 projects that are pending, and those are the ones that haven't started yet. And it was very interesting. I was going to ask the question. I've got another version of this that add two more columns that shows this by dollar amount rather than just the count. But it's very interesting. The 110 projects, or 53% that are pending, equates to about 25% of the budget. So what's happened is the bigger projects, the more expensive projects, those are the deferred maintenance at schools that needed it the most. Those are the first ones that have been done. So while there's a lot of number of projects still to be done, they are all much smaller. And you'll see that, I mean, the Construction Oversight Review will see that as they see contracts go through, the dollar values are shrinking because we did the most expensive projects first. So this is just the status of the projects. I just thought that was interesting. I always, when I do these reports, I tend to play with the data and see what I can find. And I just thought that was an interesting tidbit. If that's something you all would like to see, I can add that on because it's in my backup.
I think go ahead and add it, and then we'll tell you next month or next meeting whether we want it or not. Question I had on this, what's the difference between closed and completed or canceled?
Okay, completed, a good example of that would be Addison Meisner that has been completed. Kids are in it. It will be another 12 months before the final bills are paid. And once the final bills are paid, and he hates it when I say 12 months, but I'll use Verdi. Verdi opened a year ago, and we just made the final payment. It takes a year. I'd love it to be sooner, but it usually takes about a year before everything is done. Sometimes it's faster. I assume 12 months. That way I'm not bugging him.
That includes some of the school purchases, when the school gets in and realizes they need.
Yes. It includes final payment, the final payment to the contractor and the architect, and that's usually towards the end. So we have a lot of schools that are, projects that are completed that need to be closed out. And Dave and I have an agreement that we're going to work through and close a lot of projects in the coming months. Once we have to time those. We wait till school gets opened and everything is settled, the dust is settled. The dust never settled last year. Last year was not a normal year, but there's a number of projects that will be closing out this year. So I'm not sure if you'll see it at our November meeting, but the February meeting, you'll see a lot of projects go from completed to closed.
Okay.
Question. I noticed in your cancellation, I noticed Gold Demolition, that was one of the projects that was canceled.
We gave the property, I think, to the city of Belle Glade.
That's one because you gave it, okay, yeah. I know they gave it to the city of Belle, I just, okay,
We
gotcha.
didn't need to spend the money to demo the building because we gave it to the city of Belle Glade. And then the similar with the old Plamosa, we're looking at selling that. So rather than spend district money to tear that down, we can just sell it with the building on the property.
Would have been nice though, you know, I understand, no problem.
Okay. Let's see, is there an easier way to move from slide to slide? Yeah. There we go. Okay, so there are a few proposed plan modifications. We have, one of them is for the sales tax reserve, number 101, is to increase for the interest that was earned in 2021. And I'm going to open these up and go through them, but I can do that. This one is the extra revenue from interest earned during FY21. And then we have 4 that these are projects that are either closed or completed, and we're comfortable taking money out of these projects at this point. So we can flip over, and I have the proposed plan modifications here, and I'll just bring them up. There's only 5 of them. The first one is the sales tax reserve. We earned a whopping $80,000 of interest this year. Much less. The interest rates are between 0.01% and 0.05%. I'd love that number to go up. I can't wait for interest rates to rise for that reason alone. But the interest that was earned is there, so we've added that into the budget. The next four, Addison Meisner, that school is open, and we've gone through and reduced the budget by $1 million. We will reduce that budget again later on, but this is the money we're comfortable taking out. These four projects that we're talking about, Addison, Meisner, Verdi, Washington, Plumosa, they were all funded with the 2020 COPS issue. And the proceeds of the debt issue can only be used for those projects or for principal and interest payments for that debt issue. But there is a limit as to how much we can use for principal and interest, and this will exceed it. So we have a small project that's a core expansion that we're going to fit into the COPS issue. And we need to start work on that. So I asked the construction department, how much can you take out of these projects now so I can reappropriate it to that other project? So that's why you see these four coming through. And you'll see each of these will come back again later when we do final closeouts. So Addison Meisner, they were comfortable taking $1 million out. That building just opened. You'll see pictures of it.
So question for you, Leanne. You're allowed to add projects to the COPS?
I have to go through with bond counsel and go through a process to do that. So it's not a simple process, but it can be done.
So that's what you're doing with the core expansions?
Right.
You're adding it to something that was already pre-approved for just four projects?
For this one, and for one of them. We have two core expansions that are supposed to be funded this year. Both were going to be funded with the next debt issue. Instead, I'm going to reduce the future borrowing and put one of them into a borrowing that's already taken place.
Good.
When you have the overage of such, what do we do with that money? Or do we prioritize how we use it or where we use it at?
The extra money that's left over, this is proceeds from a debt issue, so I can't use it for just anything. It's got to be used for a project that can be added into. It's basically taking, if you had a mortgage and you're expanding it to add an addition to your house, except we're adding an extra building.
Gotcha.
So I'm working with our bond counsel to go through that process, that I'd be reducing the value of the buildings that we built and add in another building. So our net value for the investors would be about the same.
Gotcha. That's what it was.
So the addition that we're putting in there, I believe it's Citrus Cove. It's the core expansion at Citrus Cove or Del Prado. We're in the process. It's Del Prado. They're both about $5 million, and you'll see what I'm pulling out of these projects is about $5 million. Verdi K8, this one is the one this opened a year ago. So we're pulling 2.5 million out. I'll tell you that I got approval to take another 800,000 out yesterday. So you'll see another request just like this come through in November. It was just too late to update this. And this date is really as of June 30th. So you'll see another revision pulling the rest of the money out. All that will be left in the Verdi project is the last amount of furniture and equipment that the school is still purchasing. We went from a K-5 school to a K-8. So they added 6th grade last year, they added 7th grade this year, and they want to buy some more furniture later this year that would be for the 8th graders. And Washington, this school just opened, and you'll see pictures of this one in a little while. There's not as much money coming out of it because it's just wrapping up, but it's $598,000 coming out for this one. And Plumosa is a similar, that was the expansion to a K-8, and they were willing to let me have $750 for that project. So we'll pull this out. Those buildings just opened. I think Plumosa, they're still wrapping up some of the construction, and Dave will talk about that in a few minutes. So these are pretty straightforward. It's just projects are winding down. We're pulling them out to use them for other projects. I do want to mention, at the next ISSOC meeting, you'll see all the changes that have come forward for the capital plan. And there are a lot of them, and every year we do the capital plan, there's always a lot. It's not changing the budget, it's moving some money forward. So if a project was funded and all the work is supposed to be done in FY23, we need to move a little bit of money into FY22 so we can hire the architect and get things started. So we have 179 schools. I would guess we're going to have 50 or 60 proposed plan modifications at the next meeting. When we did this last year, we had it in a spreadsheet and listed them all, and the committee said, we don't want it this way, we want a separate PPM for each one. So before I write a separate PPM for each one, I'm bringing it back to say, are you sure you want me to give you 40 or 50, or are you okay with me summarizing them?
I vote for summary. Does anybody want to see 50 or 60 of these individual pages, or a single spreadsheet that we can go down saying yes, 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 yes?
No.
Okay.
Everybody wants spreadsheet. Good.
And that's for timing. If there is a true budget change, I'll do a separate one. But if it's just timing, I'll combine it. And that's what the vast majority are.
Okay.
Okay. I do need to make sure you all approve the PPMs that are here.
Yeah, one comment I want to make for construction and for Dave is I want to make sure that we continue as a district with the CM at risk process because it works. These are all CM at risk. And the contractor's on board from the day the architect's hired and made to keep the architect in tow and on budget and put some contingency in there. And we're only able to bring money back into the budget because of that process instead of a hard bid or a design build and the job comes in over budget and then we're having to go to Leanne saying we need more money instead of putting money back into the budget. So our process works, and I've been on Cork long enough to know that there's been discussions over the last 20 years of, well, let's go to hard bid, well, let's go to design build, and they've both fallen on their face, and CM at risk it works.
I'm in agreement. As a matter of fact, in the projects that are coming up, as Leanne mentioned, the bigger projects, a lot of money, it's easier to control. Now we're going to get into smaller dollar value projects, but just as important because School M compared to School A, the first one we did, School M cares about their stuff, and it's going to still require that level of support from a CM contractor that you won't get from a hard bid.
Yeah.
So we are in agreement with that.
Okay, good. Go ahead, Leanne, I'm sorry.
I just need to have a vote that you all approve the PPM numbers 101 through 105.
I'll motion to approve.
Need a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Elmore. All in favor? Aye.
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 Anyone online opposed? Not hearing any, so it seems like we have unanimous approval.
Okay, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Dolan to give you an update, and it starts off with videos. So are we going to show one?
Yes, Mark, if you wouldn't mind. This is a video of Addison Meisner, one of the schools we just modernized. Okay.
Also, for those that don't know, when we say modernized, it's brand-new school from the dirt up. It's not a renovation, it's not an addition, it's brand-new school from ground to roof.
Yes, the modernization at Addison Meisner, you may all recall we moved the students and the faculty from Addison Meisner into a holding school over near Don Estridge. Thanks to land the city of Boca Raton was kind enough to support us with. And in fact, we've already started, you'll see one of the other videos, a groundbreaking for what's referred to as new 05C. That's a modernization, a brand new elementary school right next to Don Estridge. That'll be a great addition. That project is under construction now. As far as Addison Meisner is concerned, I wanted to show that video because it's an absolutely incredible school. Mayor Singer, I know, was there at the opening for that. Again, I can't thank the city of Boca Raton enough for their support and their help on this, working all the way through this. You'll notice that I have 2 groundbreakings. So we've got new work that's underway. I have 2 modernizations, modernized Addison Meisner and modernized Washington. And I've also got a video. Everybody's welcome to click on those and view them. That's our Royal Palm Beach High School facility renewal. It's a typical example. We've got a number of those on our district website. Moving on. Okay, I mentioned facility renewals. As a reminder, everyone should know the facility renewals are basically the nuts and bolts of getting schools back up to current standards, making sure the air conditioning is replaced, the restrooms are brought up to code, flooring, lighting, classroom furniture. These are things that the schools may have been lacking from years. So these, while they may not be necessarily pretty projects, they are very important and certainly very important to the schools. The joy that they get out of these is impressive. You'll see a couple of slides here, some restrooms, flooring in Lake Worth Middle. Next one. We always refer to our prioritization of cool, safe, dry, bright. You'll notice roofing at Jupiter Elementary, important improvements. New air handlers, AHUs, are referred to as air handlers, the nuts and bolts of air conditioning systems at our schools. So we're replacing those, and through a separate source of money, we've done chillers at these schools. So I don't know if I mentioned it already, but I did mention it at Cork. I was quite proud this year. This opening of schools this year was impressive from a facility standpoint. Not trying to toot too much, but we normally have a lot of concerns on the opening of schools with air conditioning. Our school district, we always are challenged in the first 2 to 3 months of the school year when it's certainly hotter than the rest of the year. Oftentimes we bring in chillers, temporary chillers, to help support the schools if they're having challenges. With all the work that we've done so far on the first 3.5+ years of the program, this year we did not need one temporary chiller. Every air conditioning system in all the schools worked. Now, we had little bugs and things, but we really were very, very successful. And that is thanks to the sales tax referendum that the voters of Palm Beach County approved. This has made a dramatic impact. Leanne mentioned it before. A lot of these schools that you're seeing are the second wave of schools. The first wave were the ones that really needed it badly, and we've really shown a great improvement on those ones. Go ahead, next one.
Too far.
It's okay. All right. You can see flooring, ceiling work. We have a very special project over at Wellington High School, redoing the press box and putting in an ADA compliant elevator to said press box.
I was impressed with the ceiling work. How you got everybody up so high.
Yeah. Okay, so again, roof work. And again, I look at, you look at the casework project and you say, what's that? It really does make a difference to the schools. It may not look all that impressive, but they may have been lacking prior to this, and this is a huge improvement for them. I know that Lake Worth Middle was excited with a lot of the improvements we've put in there. Next one. Okay, that was our facility renewals. Now we're going to get on to the bigger construction projects. The Washington Elementary was a modernization. The students and the faculty were moved to Lincoln for, I guess, 2 years while we were working on this and building this. We renovated one building and built all new buildings, all the rest. Actually, sorry, I stand corrected. We renovated 2 buildings, the main office and the arts building, and then we built all new classrooms, cafeteria around it, and improved the site. And we opened that up just the beginning of this school year. and it was quite a success. You want to go to the next one?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, this came up at Cork, the play field looks like it's really old. It was just sand that was still on
Sand.
there.
Yeah, they're keeping it settled. So, number of the new photos, you'll notice it's not all that dissimilar to the images you saw on the Addison Meisner video. Okay, Addison Meisner, same circumstance. We were able to move the students and the faculty out into a holding school, and able to build this, knock it down and build it. And again, one of the points that I want to make, applauding my own team, so I need to let them know how appreciative I am. They built both of these schools in 12 months. We don't normally do elementary schools that quickly. The contractor we had, the architects we had on these schools, they both did incredible jobs to get them done in 12 months. You can see there's Addison Meisner has a number of different locations where parent pickup and bus pickup. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to add on, this is also a K-8, not just an elementary school. That's why it does look bigger than Washington. It's a bigger campus.
Right, it's a two-story. You'll notice there are two-story classrooms in there. Okay. All right, the next one, Plumosa School of the Arts. Many of you know its current location, and there had always been a plan, and we implemented that plan this past year to build a new building, a new two-story building, to expand to the 6th through 8th. So we now have a middle school of the arts in the South region. Right now, as we mentioned before on the other K-8s, this year they only opened it up to sixth grade. Next year, those sixth graders will matriculate in 7th grade, and we'll bring in new, and following year as well. That's our little, if you can see the image, that red box, that red L-shaped building is the new structure. The box up on the top there is the, oh, no, I'm sorry, on the red. There's a performance space right there. That is still under construction. We're just about done with that, but that wasn't needed for the opening days of school. The long, straight building is a 2-story classroom, and we had most of that done by the opening of school. All the first floor was done, most of the second floor was done, and the school was fully operational on that first day. Whole new bus loop. One improvement that we are still working on beyond that is there's going to be a turn lane right out there where Leanne's pointing. We're going to be doing a right turn lane in, which is going to dramatically improve the challenges of traffic along the main road. Go ahead. And there's a couple of the photos of the in-place building. You can see the picture on the left shows the big box on the left is the performance space, and the area, the long piece on the right is the 2-story classrooms. And there's a couple of images from that. Okay, next one up. Our 2 groundbreakings. We had a groundbreaking for what we refer to as O, 03 000 High School out in, I guess, the greater Lake Worth area, out on Lyons Road. We're really excited. This is a 2-year project, the first high school we've built in probably about 10 years.
In 10 years. The last one was Palm Beach Gardens High.
Oh, wow, that's at least 10 years.
Yeah. So this is a tremendous effort for us, if you want to. Okay. Next one we have, this is, oh, and you know what? I never uploaded the more recent photos. I got them and I failed to put them in there, sorry. But this is the 05C site. What you'll notice is that there's a little parking lot in the front there. Yeah, those things that Leanne's highlighting, those are the old rented modulars that we used as the holding school for Addison, Meisner, and Verde. Right now, I have photos that I didn't upload where they're all gone. So we've already moved them out. And again, the team that's building this project, this is a 12-month construction project. We started in the beginning of June, and we will be done by next summer. This will be opening up next August. So we're very excited about that. It's a tight project timeline, but we're very comfortable with our abilities to get this one done. So this will be a great addition for that area, and I know that certainly needed for some of the balancing of student enrollment in that area.
One point of clarification on the new high school. Gardens was actually a replacement high school. So the O is the first new school that never existed before.
Since Park Vista,
Park Vista, and that's been 20 years ago?
close to it.
Yeah.
Not quite 20, but close to it.
And the one you just showed, the new elementary school, that's, again, not a replacement. That will be a brand-new kind of expansion of a school that did not exist before.
That is correct. That's a K-5 that will be improving the distribution of students in that area.
Now, Verdi and Meisner, weren't they both K-8s?
Prior to our modernization, they were both K-5s,
Right,
Verdi and Addison Meisner.
right.
With the modernization, we expanded them to include grades 6, 7, and 8.
And the reason we're not doing that on the 05, the new one, is because there's already a middle school next to it, Don Estridge?
There is,
Okay.
literally right next door to it. Right. We have room for, we always build room to expand the elementary school. So there's a little bit of room on that, just very little. But there's not room to put a middle school on that site anyway.
Well, you wouldn't need it because it's literally within walking distance, isn't it, of Don Estridge?
That is
So,
correct.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else have questions for the update? Okay, not seeing any online either.
Excuse me, yeah,
Yes, Mr. Rhodes.
Pahokee High School went in on the modernization. Pahokee High.
Pahokee High is not a modernization, it's a facility renewal. And we're actually out on the street for advertisement for Pahokee High facility renewal. So that work will be getting, as a matter of fact, Pahokee High Schools, some of the improvements at Pahokee High School are already underway because we pulled them out instead of having a contractor do them under a CM contract. There were other scope items that we could improve with term vendors.
Okay.
I know we might have talked about the covered walkway lights
Yeah.
as
yeah.
a
And the
concern there.
flooring and-
It's already being taken care of. But we are in fact moving on Pahokee right now. It's
Okay.
RFP out in the
I
street.
noticed the one that thought it might have been in some of the report, because I know they're working on it. Okay, gotcha.
Okay, I always bring the committee a picture of the capital plan. So this is a presentation that kind of goes through it. The actual capital plan that was presented to the board in August is attached. The final adoption is scheduled for September 14th, and I'm making the final changes to that right now, hoping to have it wrapped up today. But there hasn't been significant changes. Mostly it's just the closeouts of things. But this is just an overview, if I can get it to move, of the capital plan, and it encompasses everything. The capital plan includes the facility work, principal and interest payment on debt, buying buses, technology, security, and of course, a lot of this is funded with the sales tax, so that's one of the reasons we bring it back to you. The biggest changes to the capital plan this year is increased funding for computers. We've actually basically moved the funding up a year because it takes so long to get computers. It used to be you could order them and they'd be here in a couple of weeks, and that's not the case anymore. So we basically doubled up the budget for computers this year so that everything could be purchased in time and we wouldn't be rushing to get computers for start of school. So that was a big shift. There's a big increase in funding for roof replacements. Above and beyond what is in the sales tax, we funded another, I think it's 24 roofs to be funded apart from the sales tax. There's just a lot of work. The past few years, we've been funding a lot of air conditioning work in addition to the facility renewals, and now we're picking up the roofs. And then there was an increase in the budget for Delray Full Service. You'll see that come to ISSOC at the next meeting. That'll be one that you'll actually have a separate PPM for because there's a budget increase. This is just a list of all the capital projects, and anything on the referendum list is in italics, and you can see just about everything is in italics. There's a few projects that are not. There's the new school 17 PP, that is not part of the sales tax. And then the demo of the old adult ed and the addition at Forest Hill High School, Jupiter Modular Addition. some work that's being done for school police in this building, and the core expansions, there's actually 8 of them, and we talked about that a little earlier, funding it with the cops. But just about everything else is on the referendum project list. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. This is one of the things that I personally spend a lot of time looking at debt service. Our finance committee sees this quite frequently, and they're going to get a review of that coming. They'll see the same presentation. I'll spend more time on this slide next week with the finance committee, but this is just showing the projection of how much we have in place. The brown bars are what's for existing debt. The blue is what will be added over the course of the next 10 years. The red line is what we're allowed to spend currently, 50% of the 1 mil. If the legislature had not reduced the capital outlay millage, we would have been at 2 mils, and that line would be much higher. And if that had not happened, we probably would not have needed the sales tax. That's really the reason we needed the sales tax, because we'd lost so much money there. Facility projects, the biggest one is facility renewals. That's a big part of that. That's all sales tax funded. And then we have other facility projects, such as the roofs and air conditioning. And gosh, I had the number wrong. It's 46 roof replacements over the 10-year window. And there's a little bit for site acquisition, but lots and lots of roofs. Security and transportation and equipment. The security projects, a lot of that is funded with sales tax revenue, and it's doing improvements at the schools, physically going in and making improvements there. Mr. Dolan's team is the one leading all that work at this point. We're also continuing to buy buses and support vehicles that's funded with the sales tax. And then there's other equipment and things that are funded in other ways. And then furniture and equipment. This ranges from musical instruments to computers and well, not the computers, that's on the next slide, but all kinds of desks and chairs and things that we need to buy for the students. Technology is the next slide. Education technology, that's the big flat panels that you've heard about before that is funded with the sales tax. And then we have other technology, which is the computer refresh, moving up the purchase so that we're ahead of it, and then spending quite a bit of money related to cybersecurity and network security to make sure all our data is safe. Other capital items, and again, these are over a 10-year window. Property and flood insurance, the reserves, the transfer to charter schools, that was funded by the state in FY22. They funded it all but 1 year. But in the capital plan, we assume that we'll have to pick it up unless we hear otherwise from the state. The reserves, most of that is in the out years. It's not current. And by the time we get to year 6, there'll be a need. So having extra reserves in years 6 through 10 and have money reserve, we really have to build that into the budget because there'll be things that come up that we just don't know about yet. So the capital plan is essentially complete. We're making the last final changes of it. It goes to the board on September 14th. The big things we're continuing to monitor. We want to make sure that sales tax revenue is dedicated to the deferred maintenance. That's what the vast majority of it is, and that's one of the reasons ISSOC exists, so you can make sure that we're spending it as we'd committed to. We'll continue to monitor legislative changes, things like cost per student station calculations, funding of charter schools. We do have rising construction costs we're dealing with, and staffing needs. It's really hard to hire people these days. So those are big issues that we're worried about, and they could impact the capital budget. So that's the quick update. The full capital plan was attached, and the final one will be presented to the board on September 14th. Any questions on that?
I have one for Dave. When we're doing all these roofs, since we're replacing something that was done 25 to 40 years ago with much thinner insulation levels, are we doubling and tripling insulation levels we're putting on top of the roofs before we put a new roof on?
Yeah, yes. Specifically in a individual case, maybe not, but yes, in general we're doubling up, we're improving the profile of our roofs so that we last longer. We're even doing things like Tremco is a roof coating. Instead of replacing a roof coating will buy us a long run, and with it, it also improves its insulation, its thickness. So yes.
Okay, when we do a brand new roof, are we doing something that's got more of a reflective quality to it as well? Or is it just standard black roof? Because I know for a while FPL was offering an aluminized coating credit, when you would coat a black asphalt roof with an aluminized coating because it reflected so much more heat that it would cut down the AC bill.
To my knowledge, we are not,
Okay.
because we're not working with FP&L on any sort of credits.
No credits.
We are using best practices
Okay.
for roof designs, but not necessarily for the purposes of energy conservation in that respect.
Okay, I'll bring that up again at Cork then. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Leanne.
Okay, so,
I had one question back when you did your first slide on the sales tax and the percentages we're getting in that one page. No, I don't even know if it was at the beginning of this.
it is, I think so.
Okay.
This one?
No, not
The
that
next
one.
one?
It's the one with the bar charts. It was a single page. It's the update on the tax revenue coming in.
Okay. This one?
Yeah, over there on the right side, July 21, there's a negative
Yeah.
$1.5 million. I was wondering how we got to a negative.
It's accruals. So at the end of the year, I drive the construction department crazy. I need to get all the bills for work that was completed through June 30th. Contractors typically bill the work for June in July. So it all had to be recorded in June. That's why June is always higher than any other month. And in July, it's negative because we put the expense in 21, and there's a negative expense in 22 to be offset by those bills when they come in. So there's at least one contractor that didn't submit their bill for June in July. So we end up with this little negative that shows up.
Okay. Only one other question I had. Sorry to have so many questions. For the capital plan, I see in there's some listings of holding schools, and I know we're going to need budgets for holding schools. Have we budgeted everything we think we're going to need for the next 10 years for holding school budgets that we're going to have? For instance, Grove Park, I don't think we initially thought we would need a holding school off-site. And now I think the plan is to do something off-site.
Yeah, as far as I know, and all the holding schools I'm aware of have been put in the budget.
Okay.
So that's one of the discussions that I have with the facilities team about letting me know what those numbers are. We're not funding the holding school with with a debt issue because I have a philosophical issue with borrowing and paying something off for 20 years when we're only using it for 1 or 2. So we don't borrow for it. We use other funding sources, but we're breaking those out now so that everyone can see. So there's holding schools scheduled for Grove Park, Melaleuca, and Winbrook. Melaleuca and Winbrook will both be using the same holding school. The cost of putting it in place will be charged to Melaleuca, and the cost of taking it apart will be charged to Winbrook, along with the appropriate rental for rented portables for each one. They'll be at Crestwood, and Grove Park is going to be at the Pew Center. So that's the only ones I'm aware of. I asked.
Well, and right now, there are 2 other ones on there that the reason we don't have a separate line item for them is because we haven't gotten to that level yet. There's West Riviera modernization and the Pine Grove modernization. They are both coming up in a few years, and at this point, we don't know exactly what it will entail. So all those other ones that say holding school are based on a specific plan. We know what we're doing, how many modulars, where it's going to go. Is it on campus? Is it off campus? All those details are spelled out, so we're able to monetize the need for that holding school. Right now on Pine Grove and West Riv, we're going to end up having to come back and figure those out as we get closer to them.
I'm wondering if West Riviera could use the holding school you're setting up at the Pew Center for Grove Park, since it's not really that far apart. But anyway, that's up to you guys.
Also the possibility of using the space at Lincoln that we use for Washington. I mean, there's multiple pieces that can be looked at.
Yes, we're constantly playing the gymnastics of figuring out the locations. We certainly take a lot of things into consideration when making those decisions. It's not a quick decision, so.
Yeah, with the last sales tax program, when we were building schools like that, the campuses were much larger, and we were able to build them on site. We'd take the play fields and use that, build the school there. So the kids wouldn't have a playfield for a year, we'd build the school there and then tear that on the old one and rebuild the playfields. The problem with these schools is they're all in the middle of the city and there's no extra room. They're really tight campuses, so it gets to be very challenging. But that's something that we'll be working on. Our capital plan just added extra information, which you probably don't care about. But the capital plan, as soon as we wrap it up, we will start working on the next one. We're doing it a lot earlier. We're moving that process up. So I've already warned everyone, as soon as this is locked down, we'll ask for the upcoming changes. So I'll be anxious to see the information on holding schools because that changes the budgets. So that's why Dave and I talk so often.
Any other questions for Leanne or Dave? Okay, next item.
Okay, the next item is the election of a chair or vice chair. And I did have a little report that shows who the chair and vice chair have been for the last 4 years. There is a limit in policy, and I included a link to the policy, and I sent that out last night for those yesterday afternoon. There is a limit to 4 consecutive years for the committee chair. So the committee can vote for a new chair. They did add language in that said if an advisory committee votes to recommend the term limitation be extended, the recommendation should be presented to the board for a vote to approve, and it should go to the board in advance. And this is the organizational meeting that's supposed to take place at the first meeting after school starts in August. So the committee really has 2 options. You can elect a new chair. If you choose to not elect a chair, you can tell me, we don't want to have our organizational meeting today. We want to defer that to the next meeting, and tell me what you want me to take to the board. And that really is at the pleasure of the committee of how you want to move forward. So if anyone is interested in serving as chair,
Done such a good job. Okay, the term that the chair now, are we saying we can extend if we needed to?
if you would like to extend and have David Porter continue to serve as chair, then the committee needs to let me know that, and then we would defer the election until the next meeting, and I would be going forward to the school board to
You've done
ask them
such
to
a good
extend.
job. I'd like to make a recommendation, motion, however you want me to put it, that we extend the chair if he would take it for
Okay.
the senior.
I'll second it, or,
See everyone nodding heads. Okay, so I will, so the vote is to defer the item on the agenda today. We're not going to elect a chair and vice chair. You'd like me to go back to the board and ask them to extend the term limit of the chair. Okay?
Well, thank you. Do I get a raise for that?
Yeah.
One quick question. When you say extend the term, is it for 1 year or is it another 4 years?
It's 1 year at a
1 year.
1 year at a
time.
time?
1 year time.
Okay, thank you.
So what my job will be next year to bring this up at our first meeting of the year, bring it up like in April. Our last meeting was in April. I would bring it up in April to find out what you want to do, thinking ahead. So I would add that, I'll add that to the schedule of things to bring in earlier. And you'd have to make a decision each year.
And the other point of clarification, it's not an automatic that I'm it. It just means that at our next meeting, there will be an election, and if you want to elect me again, then that's allowed.
No, it actually, if the board
No?
approves, that committee's chair may run for reelection
May
at the
run.
next.
May run, that's
Okay,
what, I had
okay.
that word added in there, because previously, Bruce Harris had it in there that it would automatic, if you're going to extend it, chair's automatically in, and I said, no, what if the chair doesn't want it? I said, allow it to just be that the chair can run again.
Okay.
And so that's all that's now set up by you asking for the board to give a waiver.
Okay.
Leanne, will you take a formal vote on that? I don't think you.
a formal vote, yeah.
Yeah, I heard a motion and I saw nods.
Seconded it.
Okay. We have a second?
I seconded it, but I think somebody else also down there
I think
seconded it.
Mr. Elmore did as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Say, so can I get a vote?
All in
Yes.
favor? Aye?
Yeah,
Any
aye.
opposed?
Aye.
Okay,
Yeah, that was an aye.
okay.
Aye.
There is no term limit for the vice chair, but since I've deferred the entire meeting, we'll defer the election of the vice chair till the next meeting as well.
Okay.
Okay. The only other thing I have on the agenda is the next meeting is scheduled for November 5th. I have the future meetings out here going out a year. If you have any conflicts with those dates, please let me know. And I want to thank all of you for attending. I want to remind you, I sent the information out. The board has thanks to legislative change, all committee members can attend virtually now. So you can attend virtually or in person. It just means that when I send the calendar item out, rather than just saying, yes, you want to attend, you'll need to say, yes, and I'm attending in person or virtually, so that we know how many people are here versus online. But you have the option to attend in whichever way works better for you.
So am I hearing now that if we attend virtually, you still can get a quorum?
Yes.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we did it during the pandemic. There was an executive order that allowed it, and then that expired. So at our last meeting, we had to have people here in person, but we worked with our legislative liaison and was able to get a legislative change, so
Okay.
committees can now meet virtually.
Okay, gotcha.
So I know some of you travel a long way, and depending on what else is going on, it might be convenient for you for one occasion or another to attend virtually. You're allowed to attend either way. You'll be able to look at the agenda and make sure you're comfortable doing it electronically. Typically, these meetings are pretty easy. We go through it. I don't think you can see the video as well online, but we give you the links so that for the folks online, you can watch those videos later at your convenience. So.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you. We are adjourned.
Thank you all very much.